And our next item on the agenda is Bruce Johnson giving us update plans for the fleet. And I have a question. Have you, with this new money that we've attained, have you put in a wish list?
Oh, absolutely. Don't you remember the last meeting?
Well, yes, I know that. I just wondered if maybe you'd added anything to it.
Oh, I have added more since the first of the year, and we got told that there was a second go round. Certainly
Right.
not anywhere near the size of the wish list that I've already accomplished. But
I hope.
a few other devices that could help in the management of things, especially in consideration of being prepared for remote. If we ever are remote again, I'm still adding some devices like, are you familiar when you turn your PC on and you start with a black screen? Well, at that BIOS level of booting your computer, I can't access a computer remotely when it's not finished loading Windows. I have to wait for Windows to finish, then I can access that computer remotely.
Okay, I got you.
I've put in on a wish list a device that allows me to see the computer while it's still at the very first boot screen before Windows happens. Oftentimes when something crashes, it's stuck at that screen. And so to be able to access and remotely control that device while it's at the BIOS level is a big piece of repairing something that has crashed.
Yes.
And so I certainly have put in for that, and that was like $4,000.
Wow.
But it will take care of 16 servers. So it is a very useful piece that I've wanted for 20 years.
Well, it makes a whole lot of sense because you're right. And I don't have that problem with my computer. Why, I don't know, way it's set up or whatever. But you're right, because when it goes down and if you can't get into it, you're stuck.
Then I got to drive in.
Yeah.
So on Christmas Day, Power School was down, and we had to notify households of a possible COVID event. And so had to get in the car and go turn on the server.
Wow. Okay. Oh,
So that would have been crucial in that type of an event.
And still is.
Right, because come this summer, I refer you to the picture behind me.
Yes, that's very nice. It looks like you're in Florida.
Well, that's my camp at Centerbeck, and I worked remotely there last summer, and I certainly hope to be able to still achieve some of that this summer as well.
Oh, good for you. That's a nice looking big rig.
Were you under that screened in area? Is that where you work from?
No, you see where all those windows are?
Yeah.
I was inside those windows at the dining room table. But certainly inside the screen house would work as well, but not the same event.
Hi, John.
Good afternoon.
So,
good afternoon. We've just started the meeting with Bruce's wish list.
All right, I'll log out then.
Yeah, we got another 3 hours to go, so.
No, Bruce, we're going to limit you today to 15 minutes.
You said wish list.
Yes. Okay.
All right, so I am going to share with you my document on, whoops.
Oh God, John's sitting there with palm trees. Look at him.
Where'd my Zoom meeting? There we go. All right, let's be as smooth as Stephanie is when she does this.
She's had a lot of practice. Okay.
She does. So we are now coming to the end of our 5th year of our current MLTI deployment.
Yep.
And I'd like to proceed with the following recommendation as to our future fleet. And the work I've been doing behind the scenes is resulting in these numbers. So I would like to replace the teacher devices with a 13-inch MacBook Air.
Yeah.
And an iPad and a keyboard and a crayon. Now, the Crayon is a Logitech Apple Pencil, but they called it a Logitech Crayon. But
Yeah.
essentially, it's the same as the Apple Pencil.
Wow.
I would
They-
also like to replace the student devices with a new 10.2-inch iPad, grades 3 through 12 to have a Logitech keyboard. Now, this keyboard is amazing.
Yeah.
It is a rugged case keyboard, and I'll show you right here. This is the keyboard,
Yeah.
and it connects to the iPad's external connectors on the side of the new iPad. There's a couple exposed contact points. And so this keyboard inside the case connects to those outside points on the iPad, which provides its electricity.
Yeah.
And those are right here in the hinge, essentially, is where that connection is. This keyboard is embedded keys, so the keys cannot be peeled off and recreated to spell wonderful terminology. And it's all built into the case, and so it's a rugged case as well. This case is blessed by Apple, so much so that they will reduce the cost of AppleCare per device by $50.
Wow.
And they will remove the $50 service fee when we have a repair incident. So essentially, the keyboard is saving us $100, and miraculously, the keyboard cost $100.
Wow.
So it's a way for us to give every student 3 through 12 a keyboard, and the students K2 would have the STM case like we currently have. That's a rugged case that helps prevent the damage. Another value of this keyboard is it's not Bluetooth, so we don't have to worry about any pairing issues. Again, we don't have to worry about any battery charging issues because it gets its power from the iPad, and it comes with the kickstand. So it really helps to take the iPad again to another level of almost being a laptop.
Wow.
Which iPad is that, Bruce?
It's the 8th generation iPad 10.2,
Is it
Yeah.
the Air or not the Air?
not the Air. So these devices are somewhere in here. I have that window open on another screen here. Here we go. $294 per iPad.
Yeah, they're quite a good deal.
That is yeah,
And-
that's a great deal.
And then I also would like to add the Crayon for grades 9 through 12.
Yeah.
And the back of the keyboard, where is that picture? This orange thing on the back of that keyboard is actually a sleeve for the pencil/crayon to fit in. There it is. You can see it on that one.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So that will help store the crayon as well.
How much is the Crayon?
So the Crayon is $49.
Do you have a photograph of that?
I do.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so it behaves identically as the Apple Pencil, except it's a third party, and it's half price. The Pencil is $99.
Right.
Yeah. And Logitech is great.
And Apple is selling these devices through the Apple Store. And to me, that speaks volumes as far as how Apple feels about Logitech. And if Apple's willing to embrace a third-party vendor, that usually says something.
Yes.
And the fact that they're willing to take $50 off the AppleCare and $50 service fee waived on the keyboard itself means that they really believe in the product as well.
Does it effectively mean we're getting keyboards for $0?
Effectively.
Wow. It's mind-boggling.
And
Well-
they're great keyboards. I have one that attaches to my iPad. It's not identical to this one, but I love it. And it is tough. It is a tough thing.
And the other thing that I want to replace in this refresh is some of the older Apple TVs. So the MLTI program always provided us with an Apple TV for classrooms 7 through 12.
Yeah.
And when we refreshed this last go round, we took the 7 through 12 iPads, the 7 through 12 Apple TVs, and we redeployed them K through 6, and then put the new ones in 7 through 12. And so I'd like to replace the K through 6 Apple TVs with the newer Apple TV as well, because currently they're using the first generation Apple TV K through 6. And with the later versions of iOS, we're starting to notice some more disconnects at the K6 level, that teachers are having some incidents where the projection is dropping them and they have to reconnect frequently. So it's time to get those on a newer version. The first version of the Apple TV no longer takes the latest update, so we can't update them and hope to restore some of that connection functionality. So I'd like to get them all on the same generation Apple TV as a result.
Wonderful. We had a long discussion the last meeting about the teachers' devices and how they needed two, which I greatly approve of, because you can't operate with just one device.
Well, when you're doing a remote session,
Yep.
having a device being free to be a dedicated communication device makes it a lot easier. I'm sure there's sometimes Stephanie wishes she had two connections so that she could juggle all of her screen sharing and connections at the same time.
Yeah, it's very helpful to be able to have two.
So this would be the refresh timeline. I'd like to get the order in by March. Allows us to receive shipment. Apple is currently saying 10 weeks. And Apple also anticipates that that 10 weeks will only get worse as this year progresses. We're going to benefit by being ahead of most schools, because most schools will wait till summer to do their refresh. And so by us jumping in earlier on this calendar year, and with the impact of the pandemic on availability of things, I think we really do benefit by jumping ahead of everyone else. And
And
so,
of course, sorry,
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, you've been planning this for 2 years.
I've been trying,
Yeah,
and I think that we're in a good spot to make it happen.
yes.
The new devices should arrive by May 1st. At that point, I'll have my crew start prepping the staff devices, so that at the end of the school year, we can collect all devices from students and staff. And at that time, we will give the staff their replacement devices in the same event. So they'll never be a day without a device.
Right.
That would then afford us the summer to finish prepping all the student devices, which takes a lot longer, and to start preparing the buyback devices that we're going to sell to the reseller. We then deploy the student devices when school starts, and we start prepping the old devices to be sold to Second Life Mac in October of 2021. Now, Second Life Mac has really come to the table strong for us. So you may remember a year ago, I said that they were
Yep.
willing to give us $238,000 for our fleet. That number is now $388,000.
Wow.
How does it go up?
So it appears that all the shut-ins have bought up all the used devices, and they need more used devices.
Well, I'm not surprised, because everybody's using them.
Right. So they have no stock left, and these are a commodity. And so that essentially equates to our first payment on our devices, on our new fleet. So
Wow.
the sellback of our existing devices will make one of our 4 payments. Well, I don't want to say we'll make one, will be equal to one of our 4 payments.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.
And so I would like to explain my thought process that I used on device selection. I know that this is always the controversial side as to, do we take the opportunity to make change at this point? And with a lot of consideration, I really feel we need to stay with our existing structure. I agree that staff need 2 devices.
Yeah.
I think that's important in a remote situation. I also think it's important that the staff having a device that's identical to the students so that they can understand what the student is experiencing in their device as well. I think that the keyboard and the crayon really help to bridge the gap some between that laptop iPad scenario. I think that the iPad device costs at $294 versus $799 for the laptop is a drastic impact to budgeting for this project. If I had to essentially more than double the cost of every student at some 1,600 students, the bottom line would grow considerably. The repair costs on a laptop are more expensive than the repair costs on an iPad, and the frequency of which laptops get damaged is much greater than the frequency of which iPads get damaged. So those costs really help to influence that decision. But also there's more considerations of, one, I'm going to buy directly from Apple this time instead of going through the state's program. The state's program is not ready yet. They anticipate their program to start up in the fall, which would be well outside of our calendar needs. And so far, none of their information is final, but so far what they've issued in one of their announcements was that they would only let us do 2 years at a time. And we're in a position where we need to do, 2 grades per year. 2 grades per year currently. And so we're in a position where we need to do K-12. We don't need to just do 2 grades. So their solution doesn't line up with where we're at and what our needs currently are. But another benefit is whenever we've gone through the state MLTI program, even though we pay the money that we pay for these devices, we still end up paying $50 a device at the end in order to own the device. But when we buy directly from Apple ourselves this time, the buyout cost for the lease is $1 for the entire lease, not $1 per device, versus what we paid $50 per device. So we own these devices free and clear. In the past, the last deployment, the numbers divided out so that we were paying $218 per person per year, and then still needing to pay the $50 buyout charge at the end as well. Whereas buying directly from Apple, I've got the cost down per person to $170. Now that number includes the fact that the teachers get 2 devices. And so by averaging all those costs and dividing by the total body count is how I come up with that number. So we're coming in cheaper than what we did 5 years ago per device as well. And in those considerations, I've thought of, be it laptops and how much more they cost, be it the impact of if we had a BOD environment that the classroom app would no longer allow teachers to control the students' devices remotely, would not allow the teachers to see the student's screen. If we ended up in a BYD environment, that teachers would then be limited by what common areas exist between platforms. If one student has a Windows device and another student has a Chromebook and this student has Apple,
Yeah.
what types of applications and things can we do with our devices if we have to try to find something that works on all those devices? And of course, all the time we've spent in professional development and money in professional development in the Apple product. And also, if we change out of Apple to a Chromebook or a Windows device, we would have to buy all new projectors and devices for screen mirroring on the wall as well. So I think that the costs are a real big piece that drives us down an affordable lane of maintaining the same style devices we have now.
Wow.
The technology buyback that would occur in the fall, Second Life Mac, I've got quotes from 3 different vendors, and it would be my suggestion that we go with Second Life Mac. They do not grade the devices. The
Okay.
other vendors will grade your devices according to how many scratches it has on it and the whatnot. And 5 years ago, when the state refreshed our MLTI devices, we had a real problem with the company that bought back the devices because of the whole grading aspect. They issued a spec sheet. If you have these types of scratches, it'll be grade B and whatnot. Well, 3 months later, after they processed all of our boxes back at their factory, they came back and lowered the quality of every single device we had. And we ended up getting so much less money than what we were anticipating based upon the grading that was assigned while their people were in our facilities helping us package the devices and helping us assign the grade level at that time. And so we knew what to expect because they were involved, and it turned out to be a real bad experience. Second Life Mac says all it has to do is work. If it works, we'll pay you. And they're willing to pay us $388,000 without grading a single device. It just has to work and not have a broken screen.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you have a broken screen and it still works, but that would still be considered broke. So they also don't want, or they don't require us to return any chargers. And so iPad chargers have always been a big issue for us with students. This will give me the opportunity to sell 1,600 iPads and keep 1,600 chargers. And that is a huge value over the span of a year, the number of chargers we have to replace and whatnot. So I'm very, very glad to be able to keep the chargers. Also, the Crayon, much like all new Apple iPhones, does not ship with a charger. But the charger it uses is the iPad charger.
Yeah.
So even though the students will be getting a new iPad and they'll have a new charger with their new iPad that will charge their new pencil, it sure would be nice to have 1,500 extra chargers as students have 2 devices needing a charge.
Backup.
So that could help that as well. Their team will come on site in the fall and we will package up the devices and they will take them away. We don't have to pay any shipping or anything like that. And currently their estimate is $388,000.
Wow.
Our new fleet is currently at 1.3 million. I have some adjustments I need to make on it. The quote didn't include all the bags I need. I need some iPad bags for students, and the number of iPad bags was listed as 280 and it needs to be 509. So some small adjustments, but still, I think within $20,000 of what we're currently at. A 1.3 million cost for the new fleet, of which close to $400,000 will be recovered from the buyback of the old fleet. So I think this puts us in a really good position to end up with a nice new fleet, and the first year's payment pretty much cancels itself out.
Wow. So now can we afford it?
I believe so. I guess I asked John to also support that
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah, I've been through this. I've looked at it. It makes complete and total sense to me.
Yeah, it does.
It's a no-brainer that we need to stick with our existing platform. We're invested in Apple now. We've done training with Apple. People are very familiar with the platform. The students are familiar with the platform. Makes no sense to try to cheap out on something that just won't work for us. And, Bruce, I think, has really done his homework with this whole proposal. It makes sense to me on a number of different levels. I don't want to wait for the state. I don't believe the state has got a good handle on what they're doing. As Bruce said, it doesn't fit our timeline. It doesn't fit what we need to do. So I am definitely in support of the proposal.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I mean, to watch this grow over the years, and because some of this stuff we've been talking about for 2, 3 years, some of it 4 years, and now it's the time to make it happen. So I thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for all your work.
I thank you.
So just a few things. Oh, God. Can we use any of the CARES money or anything on this stuff or no?
I'm not able to answer that question right this minute. I think yes, in one sense, but I don't know that we're going to use the CARES money to pay the entire cost of this. I think there are enough offsets in CARES funding. I think we can identify aspects of it that we could rightly say would be related to the COVID emergency. Certainly remote learning and the ability to continue to do that would be an identifiable use of funding. So I will give that a qualified yes.
Okay. Has it been a couple of years since we've had any lease payments on our fleet that we have right now?
So we did not have a payment this year. And we kept that payment in the budget
Yes.
in order to make us in a position to make this purchase in March. So our typical MLTI payment in previous years is $300,000. This payment is going to come in at $313,000. And the first year will generate $388,000 from the buyback devices as well. So,
Right, so that's one of the leads with the board is like, we have this payment already in our budget.
Yes.
There's no additional budget. That's what everybody wants to know. The first question is, what's
Yeah.
additional? Nothing.
so
Plus,
it will be an
buyback.
additional approximately $20,000. It will grow a little bit, but considering that we're 5 years later and in 5-year newer technology, for the cost for 2,000 devices to only go up $20,000 a year, I think is well within that acceptable range of
That's
what you would
incredible.
expect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, that was, I remember, Bruce, when you set aside that money and said, let's keep it for this, just this project. And that was 2 years ago, right? Was it?
Well, it started in the fall
Right,
of 2019, so a year and a half.
year and a half, yeah. So
Hey,
that's wonderful.
I hate to say this because your head will get so big, you'll need a couple of props, but it's a genius plan. It's a genius plan.
It is.
It's incredible. And I just have like two questions. One is, does the iPad stay in the case as it's flipped around the air by a 13-year-old?
Yes.
Yes,
Because right now the iPad stays in its case. So when it's dropped by said student, it doesn't crash to the floor, metal to floor. So it's fantastic. Yeah. And I think the crayon/pencils will be an excellent addition for a lot of older kids who use them, if they have them, for note-taking and highlighting. As more and more things are extant on their iPads from teachers, the more they have a need for such a device. I think people who draw, I think they're a small minority of children, kids, students, learners, but note-taking and highlighting and stuff, they'll appreciate the pencil.
I think that, it will take some time for the pencil to be adopted,
Yeah.
but I think that you'll have some quick adopters,
yeah,
and it'll happen. I am concerned that, that's going to be an easy device to lose.
Oh God. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it is a $49 device in that category. I intend to engrave upon them, as opposed to most of our devices, we put a barcode on, which is a sticker.
Yeah.
And the laptops come with and the iPads come with a really, really indelible sticker that is very hard to get off.
yes,
But to put that on one of these crayons would not work. It would still be something that could be peelable. So I want to use some sort of an engraving device to engrave our barcode numbers, because I fully envision one student losing his pencil and then therefore my neighbor just lost his pencil.
yeah, yeah,
So in order to be able to show which pencil was assigned to who is going to be a key piece.
yes,
We already play that game with chargers for the iPad. I
Yeah.
lost my charger, but instead my neighbor lost his.
Right.
yes,
We'll also have to have a policy for students who lose them, because, do you get one loss for free, then the second loss you pay for yourself or whatever, but everything else is so durable. I mean, the iPad experience we've had the last several years, the durability and the low cost has been mind-blowing, especially compared to the white laptops that we had. There was just like no comparison. So I think from a cost and responsibility, efficacy to even taxpayers, the iPad's a great way to go, because it's a device that just isn't breaking on us, and the keyboards weren't breaking. We weren't having all these, problems.
yeah,
No moving parts.
right.
No,
Well,
no
maybe-
hinges. No hinges on the monitor. No internal hard drives that would suffer a lot of read-write errors because of concussion damage of the device. So the fact that everything is solid state and no moving parts is a big contributor to that.
Yeah, it really is.
Well,
Because there is a con to that side as well. The tablet is much easier to go sit anywhere in an awkward position and hold your tablet than the laptop. So in some ways you might say that the tablet is put more at risk, but yet seems to incur less damage as a result at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
maybe, Lauren, what we have to do is think about setting up some sort of policy for the loss of the crayon. As you say, the first time it's forgivable, and maybe after that we charge.
Yeah, it's up to you guys what you want to do, but I just see that as a possibility that people who lose more.
Yes,
Well,
I
certainly,
do.
I don't disagree, but I think that another thing that would help there is that we make the pencil something that they don't have to take. So
Okay.
if you feel that you might not be the best at not losing things, maybe you don't take a pencil.
Right.
All right, that could be an option.
I have
Great.
one more question. Is it possible, doable, feasible, and sort of suggestible that teachers have a second option? Because they could have an option of like the larger iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, and it basically gives them the same functionality of a laptop and an iPad at the same time. They would get one device instead of two.
So I would never get my order out in March, but if we were going to play that.
Because they'd be making choices.
If I was going to give everyone an opportunity to have a choice and get their preferences back to me, and for me to still follow up on all the back end paperwork that I need to do, I would never be able to put that order together by the 1st of March if we were going to go down that road. I appreciate what you're asking and offering, and I see the value in that. But at this stage, I see that as really taking me back 30 days.
All right. I mean, I see your point. I just, I think, some people like that option. It's a good option. And then the honoring the professional idea is here's a choice, what you feel is best for you as a instructor, teacher, staff, kind of idea.
I hear you.
So maybe next time.
Okay.
Great.
Well, and given the fact that we're not tied into an MLTI contract in this event, that doesn't mean that we can't make changes during the 4-year period as well. you know.
Yeah,
We'll certainly have fluctuation of numbers. So one of the things that I've had to build into this quote is a percentage of spare devices. Because in the past, when we've operated through the state program, if for some reason 500 kids just moved into town last weekend and I needed 500 more devices and we hired some 20 new teachers and I need all these devices, the MLTI program had what was called an enrollment pool. So that if our numbers fluctuated, they would send us devices and say we were in year 2, they would only charge us half price for it because we were already in year 2 or something, you know. So they had that ability to fluctuate. When we buy directly from Apple, we need to protect ourselves by having spare devices. Should we have 10 broken screens right now, I need to have 10 spare iPads so that those students aren't waiting for their device to come back from repair, and teachers in the same regard. So I've added 5% of our total numbers to these devices to help us with broken spares and possible fluctuation in staffing or student population. I don't know that 5% is the right number because we don't know if the number of growth would be 500 students or 5 students.
right.
5% I think is something that's not too much over the top, but at the same time allows us that working space to make sure we take care of people.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to make sure that we have time for Stephanie today.
Just
But
one
Ruth-
more thing, Susan.
What?
It's Lauren's fault, not mine.
What?
I said it's Lauren's fault if we don't have time for Stephanie.
John, did you ask me if we could do this at a workshop instead of a board meeting?
Yes, I did.
So
Yes,
February workshop, Bruce, 3rd Thursday in the month will be our workshop, and we'll lead with you. We might have something else, but this long description, including the fact that it's all in the budget, it'll be awesome.
yeah,
Well, and so I was also intending to include what we spoke about in our last meeting in that
Yes.
workshop as well.
yeah,
The improvements that we've made for the remote learning with the available funds, and then also talk about the next fleet in
Yeah.
both
yes,
at the same time.
fabulous. Thank you, as
Thank-
always.
thank you,
Yes. Stephanie, math.
Math. Well, this has been a little bit of a project this year, and I've been trying to make sure that I've been giving these piloting teachers as much attention as possible, even though we've all been spread really thin, and I know even the teachers have as well. This is not the ideal year to pilot a brand new program. But we had to, and actually as soon as the pandemic started, we were at the end of our research process, and the one company that we hadn't heard from yet was the company that we decided to pilot. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, the research that we used was from a book called How People Learn. There's chapters within the book. There's segments that are specific to different content areas. And that was some chapters from a book that I studied when I was doing the National Institute for School Leaders last year. And we would take a segment each time we would get together, and we would take a look at each subject area. And when I read the research behind math, I was thinking, I have to share this with our vertical math team and use this as a lens to look at the programs, because I think we need to be making decisions about teaching math using the latest research, not just, I think it should be taught this way because I think this is what kids need. And this, this is how this company says it's linked to the Common Core, or I've heard that this is great. We want to be focused on the research, not just the, I think. So when we heard from this company, and I'm going to show you a few of the things that this, that the program does, we were thinking, not only does this align with the research, but now that we're in the pandemic and not knowing how long it's going to be before we're back in school and what learning gaps we're going to see, this is what we need. And we decided that for this pilot, we're not comparing it to another program, because when we looked at the 4 different programs that we were researching to make a recommendation on the pilot, normally we try to pilot 2 so we can do a comparison. The second place one didn't even compare. We said we're going to be comparing up everything to this program. So why are we going to jump through trying to run 2? And I think another one of the issues with that, especially in this district, is we're already using 2 programs. And so if you then pilot 2 programs on top of that, you're going to have some kids that will have switched programs for 3 years in a row, which
Yeah.
we would find really problematic. So the nice thing about the timing of this, even though it's the pandemic, is because at the core of everything that we're teaching, we've developed our I can statements. So every grade level goes back to those I can statements. And that's exactly what this program is aligned to. They're not written as I can statements, but the major work of every unit aligns to what we consider proficient for students. So unlike our reading street, when materials arrived, it was really just a student book and a teacher manual, and then everything else is online. It wasn't piles and piles and gobs of different workbooks and go here for this and go there for that. So besides the student book and the teacher manual, there are some manipulatives that teachers requested, not a ton. A lot of the manipulatives that are required for this program, teachers already had. Some of the purchasing that we did for those at the beginning of this year, we actually used some CARES funding for, because they weren't just needed because we needed them to pilot the program. They were needed so that we had enough in a classroom for students to have their own sets, so that they're not touching each other's materials. So going forward, if the question becomes if we can use any of the CARES funding or CRF funding for the program to help offset the cost of a brand new program, we might be able to, especially if it's in terms of manipulatives and students having their own sets, because we're able to do that in the fall. So far, I've met with the vertical math team just to get some feedback from teachers. After teachers pilot a unit, we ask that they fill out a survey with how the unit went. We have a series of questions that we're asking them to rate. We're seeing great alignment to the standards. Of course, we already suspected that because that's part of why we chose this particular program, but teachers are seeing it too, which is really important. We have seen a few downsides. The K and the 1 teachers would really like to see more games. They do have a whole series of learning games, and they also have a series of online games that I'll show you in just a minute as well, but they really want to see more center-based games. There's not quite as many as they would have liked to have seen. So that was noted as a downside. And then another upside is the website, which I'm going to take just a minute to show you. It's really comprehensive. So I just want to show you a few of the key pieces. And again, part of why I'm really supportive of this program, because I think it meets the needs of where we are as a district right now, because our 3rd graders are not necessarily entering math as a 3rd grader at a 3rd grade level.
I'm out.
Yeah.
My daughter just texted me. She's feeling sick. I got to go get her.
Okay.
Okay, Lauren.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hope she's okay.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
So let me just show you really quickly. Just a few highlights. So I'll show you this first. Every grade level has students go through a routine that's called try, discuss, and connect. That's really to get them to deepen their understanding around mathematics, because one of the issues that we named in the vertical math team was students are getting to some of the upper grade levels, even upper elementary, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, without a strong math sense. They really don't have a strong number sense. They don't understand how to manipulate numbers and how they work together. So this routine is really intended to strengthen that. It's using a lot of, it's using something called 3 reads, where they're really understanding the language behind a math problem, trying to understand what a question is asking them. A lot of these pieces are done out loud. So there's a lot of math talk that's involved in learning the different types of routines and strategies for students. And then lots of opportunities for students to talk and work with each other. Math shouldn't be done in isolation. There's lots of opportunities for them to work together and learn from each other. Now, this being the pilot year, that's been a little bit of a challenge for students to do that in masks. And being 3 feet plus apart. So I think teachers have definitely noticed that as being a challenge. It's supposed to be one of the strengths of the program, but kindergartners in a mask when they're talking are really hard to hear, and it's really hard for them to hear each other. So some of these really strong routines have been really challenging for teachers to try to pilot, but they're definitely making the best of it. And there are other strengths of the program as well. And I'm going to show you a little bit of data from what teachers have accomplished to this point. I think you're going to be really, really pleased. I want to show you a really quick video because another strength of the program is it has a complete digital platform. So if we had to go fully remote, students would have full access to, they certainly would have their workbook that they could take home, but they also have full digital access to this same exact text, as well as learning games, a learning pathway, and diagnostic assessments. And their learning pathway is developed sort of like how I showed you Exact Path, where a student does a diagnostic and then it puts them on a pathway. This platform is very similar to that. So students take an assessment, and then the more that they get correct, the harder the questions get. If they're getting questions wrong, they get a little bit easier, self levels, and then once they end that assessment, they're put on a learning path. Hopefully you can see this.
Yes.
The Student Dashboard provides easy access to all Ready Classroom Mathematics digital student resources. The To-Do section provides students with access to all of their assignments. My Progress allows students to self-monitor progress on completed work. Students can select a background theme under My Stuff. K2 students will also be able to select a study buddy character. The Student Bookshelf provides a digital version of the student work text. The digital math tools are a full suite of virtual manipulatives which allow students to explore mathematical concepts using multiple models. Learning Games offers a fun, multi-sensory approach to engaging students in fluency practice. There is also a link to the Ready Classroom Mathematics Family Center, a website with information and resources for families to support students with mathematics at home. Students can easily access all of the Ready Classroom digital resources through their Student Dashboard.
So last year for Cushing and TGS, which both had math goals because they were placed on a watch list for their math scores, they used a product called Dreambox, which was $40 per student. I used grant funding in order to support that project, but it was pricey, $40 per student for a learning support, kind of like we have other learning supports as well, like Lexia for literacy, but that's a pretty big price tag, especially when you think of that per student on a district level. And so Cushing and TGS tried that last year. They really liked it. We got it for free for every student across the district during the pandemic, and all teachers started to really like it and say, Stephanie, you're going to buy us that too? I don't think so. This Cushing and TGS, for the most part, have said they like it better. So that's really exciting. This is already built into the program. That very first screen that you saw, it has teacher assigned and then the learning path. So students can either work on their learning path, which is their just right independent level, or If they're advanced, teachers can assign them more advanced work if they're ahead of the class, or if they're struggling on a certain component of the class and they have center time and students are doing independent work, the teacher can assign them work that's just right at their level for the skill that they need extra work on, which is really amazing. That's one of the components, I think, in our math instruction that we've been missing. We get lots of data. We have lots of resources, and teachers are really good about going out and finding resources, but how do you pair exactly what that need is to the resources? We have some really savvy teachers that spend a lot of time doing that, but this program takes the time piece out of it. It does it for the teachers. So I'm going to show you that component of it because I think that's really the priceless piece of all of this.
Okay.
So this is the part that looks a little overwhelming, and our teachers are still learning how to use this, but this is called the teacher toolbox. So I have a teaching manual, which if I'm a third grade teacher, I have a teaching manual at the third grade level, and has everything that the student workbook has in it. It even has in red common misconceptions. So as I'm teaching a lesson, I can look for some of those common misconceptions and make sure that I'm correcting students. It has, sometimes we think about math being really black and white. The answer's either right or it's wrong, and that's just not the case. It has alerts in it. So you might not be able to see that really close, but it has an error alert. So if a student gets an incorrect answer, a wrong number, this book guesses what they might be answering wrong, what the misconception is, and what to do about it. And that's a really great math best practice that some of the leading experts are talking about, the unveiling the misconceptions so that you can give the student what the right next step is. So this teacher manual helps to do that. Beyond the teacher manual, though, there's this whole entire teacher toolbox. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I also have full access to everything in a second grade book, everything in a first grade book, everything in a kindergarten book. So if I'm teaching third grade and I have students that are significantly below grade level, I also have full access to all of those resources that a first grade teacher has access to. I can look at my program. Oops, it's logged out. I think I've had it open for too long. Let me just log back in real quick. So I can go to my program implementation, and I mentioned before that our I can statements connect directly to this program. And most of our I can statements are a direct correlation with the major standards of each grade. And this shows where the major standard of each grade is taught in the series of lessons. So for example, this is really important right now because I just sent a message out to our piloting teachers on Friday saying that going forward, if we're keeping this schedule, we're not instructing 5 days per week. And that makes a big difference, not only when you're piloting a program, but for your general curriculum. You have to start making decisions about what to prioritize and how to do that. And this pacing guide already shows teachers, this is the major work. So if I get to unit 3, I have 2 lessons in here, and a lesson isn't a day. A lesson is a series of sessions. It could be up to, I believe it could even be up to 4 or 5 sessions. It might be 4 or 5 days that a lesson is covering, but I might decide that maybe I don't get to lesson, maybe I don't get to lesson 15, or maybe I don't do all of lesson 13. I'm just focusing on the major work of the unit because they're going to have to start making some decisions. They can't just follow the daily plan. They're not going to be able to get through all of the units by doing that. So this is a really helpful pacing guide that matches up with a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past few years with the I can statements. So that's pretty exciting. And then the last thing that I want to show you, I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. See if I can open up. I think I have a PDF. Yeah, here it is. All right, so the students take diagnostic assessments. They've already done 2. They did one at the beginning of the year in late September, early October. They just did a second one in early January. And we're looking at their diagnostic growth. Typically, this will make a projection of how much students should be growing in a school year. And what you want to see at the halfway point is that students have made approximately 50% of their growth target for the full year, because we're about halfway through the school year. As a district, we have all of TGS piloting, all of Cushing piloting, every single grade level in both of those schools, 2 kindergarten teachers at Ash Point, 2 first grade teachers, 2 third grade teachers, and a 4th and 5th grade teacher at South School. And the 4th and 5th grade teacher at South sees all of the 4th and 5th grade students. So those are our piloting teachers. And across the district, so far they've made 62% of their growth goal for the year. So we're a little bit further ahead than being on target for students to make their full growth goal for the year, which is really exciting.
That is exciting. Wow.
From the beginning of the year, our students that are most at risk, we were at 29% of the students that took the assessment were considered highest risk. We're down to 16%. We have a little bit of an addition to our tier 2 here, because those who are no longer at high risk are still sort of considered that tier 2, not quite at grade level. Tier 2 would be 1 year behind grade level, which we knew that we were bound to see based on unfinished learning from last year. And then our tier 1, we only had 3% of our students across the district testing in tier 1 at the beginning of the year, being right where they need to be. And we're up to 12% now at this point. And I say right where they need to be, but that's sort of an overall score. When students do this assessment, let me see if I included a screenshot. I did. This is just one sample. I think this is a 2nd grade. When they take the assessment, they get sort of an overall marking of where they are, whether they're on grade level or not. And if they're not, it also will give an indication of which mathematical domains are they at grade level or are they below. So it's not, we don't always just look at that flat overall score. We can look at this data in a lot of different ways. It also allows us to see, well, where are their strengths? And we can keep digging down into this data. So I'm going to back up for just a moment. And I'm just going to quickly go through by school our diagnostic results. So kindergarten, like I said, students should be about at the 50, they should have made about 50% of their growth goal. Our kindergartens across the districts have made 88% of their growth goal so far this year, which is really
wow.
First grade has made 59%. Second grade has made 83% of their growth goals. And I mean, we have some, so in this 2nd grade, for example, 99% of, the students have made in this Cushing 2nd grade class have made 99% of their typical growth goals already. So they're making pretty significant gains in comparison to where they were when they first took the diagnostic in the fall. 3rd grade, 58%. So a little bit closer to that 50%, but they're still doing really well. And again, the company would say you're looking to try to be at this 50% at this point in the school year.
Right.
4th grade, not quite there, 39%. We did have a reduction. 37% of our students in fourth grade at the beginning of the year were in the we're in the tier 3, 37% down to 29%. So we are seeing some reduction there. We are seeing some increase in our students who would be considered on grade level. But those are those students in fourth grade who had unfinished third grade learning. Third grade is where you're really securing the skills of multiplication and division.
Yeah.
Fifth grade, 56% of growth goal, of typical growth goal has been met. So overall, we're getting some really good data from this. And the other thing that we can do is we can start drilling in. So I can look as a teacher, I can pull up my class down the side here. This would list the student name, so I can see all of my students. And then I can see how much growth each student has made. There are some students that have made 148% of their typical growth goal already. So making huge gains. The student was entering into the school year at a first grade level and is now at a second grade level. This is actually a third grade. So I think I mentioned at the beginning of the year when I shared some assessment, actually, I think it was November, at a board meeting when I shared some assessment data that our second grade and third grade was the most concerning overall, third grade specifically for math. This is a third grade class, and this is pretty typical of what we're seeing, which is students coming into third grade, not really being prepared for third grade material.
Right.
And so when you're a teacher and you only have your third grade materials, that would be really challenging. But the great thing about this program is this teacher can run what's called a prerequisite report. Let me see if I have a picture of it. I do. So from here, I could run a prerequisite report and I could click on my student name. I might say, oh my goodness, this student that's made 0% progress. Ooh, what does that student need? Let me take a look and try to drill in and see if I can find a way to support that student. So it gives me a picture of where the student is. Not much growth here for this student. And as I continue to drill down, this is all on one report. I just couldn't get it all in screenshots because I was trying to not include the student name. I can click on an area where they might be significantly low. And then I can see exactly what the next suggested steps for this student are. So not only am I getting my data that's flagging me of which kid needs support, but I can go in and I can see exactly what kind of support they need. I can click on these. These are all drop down. Maybe I've decided that the student needs more support in sorting objects according to their attributes. So I pull that open and here's my tools for instruction. I could pull that student up one-on-one during center time. I could assign them things within their, right to their iPad directly. I can work with them. Maybe there's several students in the class that all need that extra support. I can work with them in a small group. And then the final thing that I can do as a teacher, I don't know if I'm going to have much luck actually pulling this report up without accidentally showing you student names, but I'll just describe it. There's one other report, and teachers have had a lot of training on this report. It's called the prerequisite report. So if I'm about to teach Unit 2, lessons 10 through 13, and I'm trying to prepare what my instruction will look like for that, I can go into my prerequisite report and it will, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a minute. My prerequisite report will show me which students are ready for the learning within that unit, which students are a little bit behind. There's a few areas that they need support and skills, and which students would really struggle with that unit unless you provide a prerequisite lesson to them. And so it automatically gives teachers the tools to differentiate within their classroom. So that's really exciting. I feel like we finally are looking at a program here that gives us really good usable data and a method for how to apply that data to changing instruction and gives us the tools for that instruction. So it really feels like a complete package. But But again, it's a huge learning curve this year. It's sort of like that one more thing on top of everything else that everybody's doing. The teachers are doing amazing. But it's definitely a challenging year to pilot.
The program, can you imagine without all this wonderful equipment, trying to do this on your own?
Right.
I mean, it would never get done. You couldn't possibly do it. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful way to show students where they need the real help, where they don't need the help, and to target them. And yeah, it's amazing, Stephanie. No wonder you like it.
Yeah, I'm excited. But it is going to be a change. And there have been a few teachers that have asked, well, where's the rote memorization? And that's tricky. You have to build fluency, and there's a lot of research around how to build fluency. And it's not quite the way I think that some of us were taught. And that's challenging to get past. And so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, I think, and lots of support for our teachers, and really being thoughtful about the professional development. But I also think we've been doing the absolute best that we can to implement it, and we're already seeing gains, and we're just learning the program. None of these teachers have ever used it before, and we're seeing some really significant gains.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah.
To see that, obviously the kids are getting it.
Right.
And today the way they learn and how they do stuff is so different than even just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the technology. And we're so lucky that we had it in place as much as we did, thanks to Bruce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pushing it. I mean, it's really funny. I keep forgetting, this is not something that's happened overnight. But I'm really glad that I think what you've suggested, Bruce, is terrific, and I think we should go for it and support it. And Stephanie, I think that program's terrific. And aren't you glad you chose it?
I am, and I have to say that it was the group. Our vertical math team includes the middle school and high school teachers as well, and we were all in agreement that there really wasn't a close second. So I sort of put all of our eggs in one basket, and I really had my fingers crossed. And the program that we were using previously in Cushing and Thomaston Grammar School is no longer in print. So that would not be a great spot to be in if this does not work out, because they can't go back to their previous program.
But I mean, now I do a lot of computer stuff, but I could do that. I mean, it would take adjusting, but just learning how to deal with it and the students, and so much of it is just entering all the data. But then once you get all your student list in, I would think that most of it would be filled in for you as they make progress.
It's all automatic. Even the student list is automatic. It all syncs through Clever. Bruce makes sure that I know the right questions to ask to companies before we even go any further. And so everything is all automatic. As soon as we enroll a student into PowerSchool, it just syncs through. We have something called Clever. This all goes through Clever, and students can use that platform to access all of the materials. So that part is pretty easy on the teacher end. But I think locating, although there's not much here, there's the teacher guide.
Yep.
This is like the most basic of basic for instructing the program. But to really do a good job with the program, you do have to start becoming really proficient of what's available within that teacher toolbox. And it's a lot of resources, not a lot of print resources like when we got Reading Street and it was boxes galore, but there's a lot online, and it's going to take us a while to really dig into that.
I remember those boxes.
Yeah.
That whole hallway was full of boxes. Just the weight alone. Well, I thank you very, very much. I think it's all very exciting, and I appreciate it. It's now 4:09, so I think our next meeting is scheduled for February 22nd. And then, Bruce, you'll be speaking to us at our next workshop. and giving
That
us,
was on the 18th, I believe, correct?
yes, I'm looking at the calendar here. Yes. Well, now the 18th is a vacation day.
Oh, is that the vacation week?
Yeah. Yes,
I'll
it
confirm
is.
tomorrow what day the workshop is.
Yeah, that's, yes. So, but anyway, and then our meetings are March 22nd, April 26th, and hopefully this COVID thing, we'll all get our shots. We're waiting because we're on the very old list. So we're still waiting our turn, but I thank you both so very, very much for all that you do
Yeah,
for the school
Thank you.
district.
Thank you
No,
for your
it's-
support.
Well, we do support you. I mean, I don't understand this business of where school boards don't support their people, but I understand it happens. Have you read the news story about the school board that was asked to wear masks on their meeting, a virtual meeting, because they'd had 2 or 3 people in the school district die of COVID that worked for them?
Oh,
And the superintendent wouldn't put on a mask.
Oh, no.
Isn't that awful? I don't get that. I just don't get it. But anyway, that's my not thing to say today. But I thank you both very much. And
thank you.
we'll see you next on the 22nd of February, but before that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much,
Great.
Susan.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate
Thank
it a lot.
See ya.
Take
Bye, guys.
care.